Good evening, folks. I actually wasn't going to do a show tonight, but earlier today I was running around town, and sometimes when I'm running around in the car, instead of listening to music, I put on podcasts, Bigfoot Outlaws, Sasquatch Chronicles, something like that. Well, today I was listening to an episode of Sasquatch Chronicles. I hadn't listened to them in a long time, so I've been catching up. I'm still down in the 200 somewhere, working my way up. And I listened to an episode where I don't even know the guy's name, but he has some YouTube channel, something like the Vault of Terrors or something like that. And I guess this guy, at least according to the interview, he does a lot of research, and he's recently, well, I don't know how recently, but he's run into some dogmen. And usually I don't even listen to shows when they're talking about dogmen, because I don't believe in dogmen. Or didn't. But he started describing, I guess he had several encounters, and he, found footprints and all this stuff. And my whole thing with dogmen is that it's just not possible for a dog to end up with hands, opposable thumb, blah, blah, blah. And I just always assume that it's got to be misidentification. Well, then he said something interesting, which gave me something to go on. He talked about some footprints, and Wes evidently also saw the same types of footprints when he was down in the big thicket in Texas with Bob Garrett. And they described the exact same type of footprint in two completely different locations. So I said, well, that should be easy enough to find because it was such a weird footprint. Let me catch up on the chat here, make sure I'm not ignoring you guys. I don't know what you mean by checkout 219. Anyway, so back to my topic here. So I went looking around for the way that he described the footprint of the Dogman, which I thought was kind of crazy. Is he said it's V-shaped, and like the ball of the foot is very wide, and it has 5 toes and claws. Which again, Bigfoots don't have claws. So anyway, so he described that. He said it comes down to like a point, like a V. And then Wes said, oh yeah, it's just like kind of like a duck, like a duck's foot, except with toes. And I said, well, that's crazy enough that it should be easy to see if there's ever been a creature ever in the history of man that has a foot shaped like that. So I went looking around, and he also said something about the hands that perked my interest. He said that the hands, they don't have an opposable thumb. He said they have a hand with the 4 fingers and a thumb off to the side, but the thumb is not opposable like ours. So that gives me 2 things to go on. And then, the pointy ears and all that. So I actually found something that matched that criteria, and he actually kind of led me to it, but I don't want to go into that. I want to kind of see if y'all go down the same journey I did. Try to take y'all on the same journey. Okay, so here is, I went back and I looked and I said, okay, Dogman, let's look back into the history of the evolution of dogs and carnivores, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so here's what I came up with. This is the kind of the tree of the, I don't know if you call it a species, carnivora, which is all carnivores on the planet. And their ancestry goes back to this one creature, which is, I guess, called carnivore. And then they all branched off into different situations. Okay, so interestingly, over here you have like hyenas and lions and all that are all related, which is weird because you would think a hyena is like a dog, but it's not. Okay, now up here you have these four, which are all related. And right there is your dog. And over here is your bear. Believe it or not, dogs and bears evidently are related. They are descended from the same ancestor. Okay, so what I did was I went in here and I marked this up to show. Well, I guess let me show the. I went out and I found a like an image to start with to create what would be a dogman's foot and a dogman's hand based on the description that was given by this guy. So this right here would be the dogman foot. Okay, and what I said, okay, if I start out with this likely creature that is the descendant of a common ancestor, and the dogman branched off. The dogman's a huge creature. It's going to have a little bit different structure, so it would match the description if you made it big to support all the weight that the dogman has, 800 pounds, whatever. So this is, I twisted and manipulated the image to create a foot that matches the description that this guy gave. This guy and Wes both gave the footprints they've actually seen themselves. So you have it comes down, it's like V-shaped. It's got a point in the back, and then a very broad ball, and then 5 toes, and then claws. Okay, hopefully none of you have figured out what I'm getting at here. Okay, so nobody's figured it out yet. All right, I was actually shocked when I figured this out. All right, you might figure it out now. This is the foot. Now I'm going to show you the hand that was described by this guy. Now this is rather terrible. My hands aren't as good artistically anymore, so I just stretched it and did all this stuff to make it look roughly like what would be like this powerful dogman hand with claws. Okay, this is the hand. All right, so once I got the hand, the hand and the foot, and I go back to this genealogy or whatever, relationships of families or carnivorous mammals. Hey, Justin. So I went in here and I marked it up. Now, as near as I can tell, Dogman would have actually branched off from this this line right here, just before there was a split between bears and dogs in that. Yeah, all right, Justin. I'm going to give you a timeout, dude. So anyway, Dogman split off right here. If you can see my mouse pointer. I think you can see it. Anyway, right just before the bear and all of that branched off. And it comes over here to the right. Okay. Now, the reason I say that is because if we go back, what the Dogman description, the hands and the feet match is this. That's a raccoon. A Dogman is a raccoon. Now, you think, oh, that's crazy, right? Well, I got to look into raccoons. That is the raccoon we all know and love, right? This is also a raccoon. But that's called a raccoon dog. Because raccoons and dogs are very closely associated. This critter right here is literally a mix of a dog and a raccoon. And here's a little footage of one. Acts like a dog, except it looks like a raccoon, right? Now, they say that it's really, genetically, it's closer to the dog family than the raccoon family, but it has both mixed together. All right. So I got to thinking about it, and that's where I came up with this little split here. because the Dogman, as described, everyone calls it a Dogman because it's big and they think it looks like a dog, right? Well, right here where this split is, you have one creature that split off into all these different creatures over millions of years now, mind you. But at this point where the bear split off is when obviously that creature had either already had mass or it had the potential for mass, because that's where grizzly bears, polar bears, and everything else came from, this point in the genetic history. So in order for a Dogman to have the potential of the mass that it evidently has, it would had to have split off around the same time that bears did. That's my logic anyway. I don't know if that's true. But it also has all of, I mean, you think about it, the foot. This is actually a raccoon's foot. Let me see. All right, that's the one I manipulated. This is actually a raccoon's foot. So you see, all I did was I widened the ball of the foot to make it look like something that would support a lot more weight. So I made the ball and the toes a lot bigger because it supports more weight. Whereas this thing just supports a little 20-pound critter. But the shape is still the same. It's just that the ball is a little thinner. Okay. So if you want, now people talk about them looking like German Shepherds, Rottweilers mixed together. They got the pointy ears, the tufts off the top of the head, that they have canine, that they leave canine-like footprints, which I think the raccoon foot evolved to a larger creature. Kind of looks like that, except the pads would be a little different. There is no pads like a dog has. So I figured it's got to have broke off right around just before or at the same time that the bears split off. Just like with Bigfoots, gorillas, chimpanzees, and all that, there was where things split off and evolved into gorillas, chimpanzees, Bigfoot, humans, and that kind of thing. That would explain, and to me, my issue with it's not possible for Dogman to exist because of the opposable thumb in the hands. You're talking about mixing a primate with a canine. Not possible. Well, when he just told me that he'd seen one up close, and he said they don't have opposable thumbs. They have hands like a raccoon where they can grip things, but they don't really have an opposable thumb. That changed everything for me. And then when I went and I looked at this history and I saw that dogs and raccoons are that closely related, and they're related to bears, which has a very similar large paw with 5 toes, I said that kind of cinches it up for me, because you have basically the same exact genetic structure or whatever species evolutionary tree, a very similar one to primates. So we don't have a type 4 Bigfoot. We have Sasquatch, and then we have, I think, Dogman. I guess you call them Dogman because they're all related. If you have a dog raccoon, but maybe dog raccoon would be a better way of putting it. But that creature is a whole different species. It's not a primate. It's actually over here in this family with dogs and bears. And oh, by the way, B is the raccoon on this illustration. Wait a minute, let me see. Are you guys seeing this? Yeah. B is the raccoon, A is a bear, C is a dog, D, believe it or not, is an otter. They're all related. An otter, can you imagine that? But I remember when I took zoology that they said, yeah, an otter, if you x-ray their flippers, they look like human hands. They have a thumb and fingers just like a person, except that they're all webbed together in the shape of a fin. So, well, that kind of makes sense. So now, with all that information, for me, because I knew these people got to be seeing something. As I said to Sam Squatch, or is that what his name is? I think it was Sam Squatch. Yeah. Anyway, I do believe that these people have been seeing something. I said, but I don't believe it's a dog-faced Bigfoot. Well, here we go. This is evolutionary evidence to me that makes sense. I can see how this is an evolutionary track that produced something that has 5 fingers, a canine-ish footprint. The only thing is it just like primates, like humans, started walking upright, and the Bigfoot, evidently this creature broke off, and some of them stayed on all fours, and this one started walking on its hind legs. Why not? People do, and I've seen raccoons do it all the time, stand up on their hind legs. We know they do it. Bears do it. I've never seen dogs do it. I mean, they'll do the dance and stuff. But as far as actually getting up on their hind legs for something, like, not the same as a bear or a raccoon. So that to me makes me believe that the Dogman is more closely related, based on the hands, the feet, the standing upright evolution, the mass, makes me believe that the Dogman is more likely a combination of bear and raccoon than it is dog and human. Now, possibly it has a little dog, little raccoon, and bear all mixed together. But I think that the canine, or the Canidae canine, would be the least of its genetic makeup. It would be mostly raccoon and bear. That's just my thoughts on it. So that was just a real quick going over. I'll see if what you guys have in the comments here real quick. I know it sounds crazy, but you know, I mean, it's all there. To me, that makes sense now. I mean, we have giant sloth, or there have been giant sloths, giant lemurs. I mean, we know that those types of things have existed in giant proportions. So why not a giant bipedal raccoon that has evolved into what we call a Dogman now? It just survived. Kind of makes sense to me. Nah, well, yeah, Matt, it could be. I'm not ruling that out. What I'm saying is that I have not been able to support the concept of a Dogman at all. You know, people are talking about this thing, and as soon as they bring it up, I roll my eyes. I'm like, no, come on. There's no way that there's a Dogman. This is the only way. This, to me, jives with what people have been talking about, and it kind of explains it. Also, what explains is some kind of a defect in a Sasquatch genes. Yes, I that's what I've thought all along. Is that's got to be what it is. This is something that brings a new perspective to it, though. This I can stand behind and say, okay, maybe it is a Dogman and not a Bigfoot that just looks weird, you know. How's it going, Crypto? I was actually shocked to find out that raccoons and dogs are very closely related. Man, bear, coon. Well, man has nothing to do with it. There's no primate at all in this. If this theory is correct, there's no primate whatsoever. So man shouldn't even be in there. I mean, literally. Yeah, I've heard people describe the Dogman as being built. They're not as big as Bigfoot's, but you know they're thinner, but they're still built like I forget what they said, like an athlete, I guess. Uh, that wouldn't jive with this theory, not at all, because you're talking about an entirely different skeletal structure. You know, that again is where I've always had problems with this Dogman thing. You cannot have a canine that has the rib structure of a primate. It's just not possible. It just doesn't happen. You know, now if you tell me that a giant raccoon, like the giant sloth or the giant lemur, millions of years ago, developed the ability to walk bipedally, that would be a Dogman. That's all it would have to do is start walking bipedally and be of that size. And you have a Dogman. Exactly. You don't have to change anything else because the face looks like a dog. You know, the coloration, but their coloration for millions of years could be anything, you know. Even some of those, the raccoons, there's like 3 or 4 types of raccoons in the world. We only have the one here in North America, but there's the dog, the raccoon dog. There is a, I forget what the hell it's called, but it looks more like a, I don't know, a lemur or a Tasmanian devil or something, has a big long curly tail. That's another type of raccoon. And there's a 4th type, which I can't remember. The other 2 don't really look like raccoons at all. They look more like some kind of monkey or lemur or something. So yeah, you have all those different types that have different colorations, different stripes, and that kind of thing. But the raccoon dog, or the dog raccoon, however they say, has like the black eyes and stuff similar to the North American raccoon. So straight up werewolf. So you're implying that somebody got bit by a wolf at some time in the past, and they turned into a dog. They went from being a human being to a dog, but they stand upright because I guess they only kept that part of being a human. It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, no, you know, I would not support that at all. I don't know. You know, there's a lot of, as far as the cracking sound, I have no idea. I've not heard that actually. I've heard people describe the dog. I think I did once actually. I think I might have once a long time ago heard some woman talk about, you know, it was on all fours and she heard crack, 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 and then it stood up. That's the only time I've ever heard that. I don't know. Maybe, you know, my knees pop when I stand up. So. And that's actually brown dwarf. That's the other thing that got me, is that I've heard people talk about Dogman and they say, and it even had a long tail. And I'm like, well, now you're completely off the rocker because there's no way Bigfoot has a tail. But now this could. This is just, you know, a prehistoric raccoon that has survived, just like we all believe Sasquatch did, that it survived in hiding. And now because, you know, of expansion and everything, we're starting to see them. It will be the same thing, except this was a raccoon and Bigfoot is a primate. Yeah, timber wolves are quite large. So, but we have no idea when in the timeline the mass came into play for bears and wolves. You know, we don't know. I actually find it a little weird that you have bears, raccoons, wolves, and otters are all they're like in the same family pretty much. That's how they have them illustrated here. But raccoons and otters are quite small compared to a bear and a wolf. You know what I'm saying? It's really, that makes you wonder, well, what happened with the size thing? Because two of them kept a large size and two of them didn't. One of them went micro mini, you know, and the other one kind of went intermediate. Because otters aren't very big. They might be about the size of a, you know, like a lab, maybe. I think well, I guess they could be about that size, but they're nowhere near the size of a wolf. All right, folks. Well, that was me just getting my my 2 cents on the subject, because when it came up today, I said I gotta put this out there. You know, I believe that if Dogman actually is out there and people aren't misidentifying a Sasquatch of some kind, this is the only explanation. It's the only one that there can be, is that it's some kind of prehistoric giant raccoon that started walking upright. Raccoon slash, I mean, it could be a dog, but the hands, the feet are both raccoon. So I think it's more raccoon than it would be dog anyway. So I just wanted to put that out there. I am going to shut the stream down and then reopen it again for an after show, which you can also go to, let's see, where are we at here? Oh, it's right down here. You can go to my Discord and we can talk, not chat, not type. We can actually talk and discuss if y'all want to. If not, I'll just shut it down and go to sleep. So anyway, until next time, y'all take it easy.